Your technique is flawless and your results are mediocre. That contradiction has haunted you for months, maybe years. You've done the visualizations, repeated the affirmations, followed every step in the right order, and something still feels off, like you're performing a ritual whose meaning you lost somewhere along the way. By the end of this, you'll understand the single variable that every master teacher insisted upon, the one most students skip entirely because it can't be reduced to a method. There's a pattern hidden across traditions, separated by thousands of years and thousands of miles. Neville Goddard, in mid-century New York, the Hermetic teachers of ancient Egypt, the mystics of the Sufi tradition, Hindu sages in the Upanishads. When you strip away the cultural clothing, the language differences, the metaphors shaped by their era, they all circled the same invisible center. And that center was never about what you do, it was about what you are while you do it. Neville put it with characteristic bluntness. He said the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret. People hear that and immediately try to manufacture an emotion. They squeeze their eyes shut and try to feel happy, try to feel grateful, try to feel rich. And there it is, the trying. The effort itself reveals the problem. You cannot try your way into a state. Trying implies distance between you and the thing. A state is something you occupy, the way you occupy a room. You walk in, you're there. The room doesn't require effort to surround you. This distinction between technique and state is so subtle that entire spiritual communities miss it for decades. They refine their methods endlessly. Longer meditations, more specific scripts, better timing, more repetitions. And the refinement becomes its own trap, because it keeps attention fixed on the mechanism rather than the consciousness operating it. Think of it like a piano. Two people can play identical notes in identical sequence. Same sheet music, same instrument, same room. One performance moves you to tears, the other leaves you checking your phone. What separates them? The state of the player, their inner relationship to the music, the presence they bring to each note. Every music teacher knows this. They spend years trying to teach it. Most fail, because state resists being taught through instruction. It can only be demonstrated, felt, and chosen. Now bring that back to your own practice. You've been given the sheet music, the techniques, the methods, the step-by-step processes, and you've been playing the notes correctly. But what state are you in while you play them? Are you in the state of someone hoping this works? Waiting for evidence? Testing whether the universe will respond? That state, the state of the experimenter, guarantees you remain outside the experience you want. The Kabbalion, that dense little Hermetic text, frames this through the principle of mentalism. All is mind. The universe is mental. When the Hermetic teachers said this, they meant something practical and immediate. They meant that the quality of your mental state is the actual substance from which your experience is formed. Technique is just the shape you pour that substance into. If the substance is doubt wearing a costume of faith, the shape doesn't matter. You get doubt-shaped results in a faith-shaped container. Here's where most people encounter their deepest resistance. Because changing your state means releasing your grip on current evidence, your bank account still shows the same number. Your relationship still has the same patterns, your body still feels the same way. And you're being asked to occupy a state that contradicts all of that sensory data. Every master teacher acknowledged this difficulty. They never pretended it was easy. Neville called it living in the end. The Sufis called it fana, the annihilation of the false self so the real can emerge. In the Hindu tradition, it mirrors the teaching of vasanas, the deep impressions that keep consciousness locked in familiar grooves. Different language, identical instruction. You must die to who you currently believe yourself to be in order to inhabit who you intend to become. And this dying is a state shift. It happens in a moment. One moment you're the person who wants the thing. The next moment, if you can make the crossing, you're the person who has it. The difference between those two moments contains the entire teaching. Every book, every lecture, every practice these teachers offered was aimed at making that one moment crossing possible. So why do we default to technique instead? Because technique is controllable, measurable. You can check it off a list. I visualized for 15 minutes. Done. I repeated my affirmation 20 times. Done. There's comfort in the doing because doing feels productive. States feel slippery. You can't prove you are in one. You can't show someone you're in a state the way you can show them your journal entry. But consider this honestly. Every time something manifested in your life with shocking speed, something you barely tried for, something that fell into place almost playfully, what was your inner state? You probably weren't working at it. You probably assumed it was coming without questioning whether it was possible. You occupied the state so naturally that you didn't even notice you were in one. That ease, that naturalness, that absence of strain, that's the teaching in action. You've already done this, you just didn't label it or recognize the mechanism. The challenge is doing it deliberately with the things that carry emotional weight. It's easy to assume your coffee order will be correct. The stakes are low. Your identity isn't tangled up in it, but your finances, your relationship, your health, these carry stories, histories, fear. And fear is itself a state, a very powerful one. When you attempt to shift your state regarding something you deeply fear losing or never having, you're asking consciousness to release a groove it's been running in for years, sometimes decades. This is where discipline enters, and the discipline looks nothing like what productivity culture teaches. The discipline here is the discipline of return. You drift out of the state, and you will, constantly, and you return, without self-punishment, without drama, the way a meditator returns to the breath. Simply, gently, and as many times as needed. Rumi wrote about this. He compared the human being to a guest house where every morning a new arrival comes. Joy, depression, meanness. He said, welcome them all. But notice what he was teaching underneath that metaphor. He was teaching state awareness, the ability to notice which guest is currently occupying your house, because you can't shift a state you haven't first recognized. Most people walk through entire days in states they never consciously chose. The state chose them. An alarm goes off, and within 90 seconds a cascade of familiar states floods in. Obligation, pressure, low-grade anxiety. And from within that state, they sit down to visualize their ideal life. Can you feel the contradiction? The visualization becomes a performance inside a state that contradicts everything being visualized. The master teachers all prescribe the same remedy, though they use different doors to reach it. Stillness. You must first become still enough to observe your current state without being consumed by it. From that observation point, that witnessing awareness, you gain the leverage to choose differently. Without stillness, there is no gap between stimulus and state. And without that gap, choice is impossible. So the practice simplifies radically when you understand this. You can release your grip on perfecting your technique. The specific words of your affirmation matter far less than the state you speak them from. The exact scene in your visualization matters far less than the feeling tone you bring to it. A sloppy visualization performed from a state of genuine fulfillment will outperform a cinematic detailed visualization performed from a state of desperation. Every single time. This is the teaching that gets overlooked because it can't be commodified. You can't sell a state. You can sell a method, a course, a 7-step system. States are free, they're available right now in this breath, without any purchase or prerequisite. And perhaps that's exactly why they get buried under layers of technique, because an industry built on spiritual seeking requires seekers. The moment you realize that the state is immediately available, the seeking ends. And with it, the need for the next book, the next course, the next guru. Your work now is simpler than you've been making it. Before you visualize, ask yourself, what state am I in? Before you affirm, pause. What state am I speaking from? Before you script, before you meditate, before you do anything. Tend to the state first. Let the state be the ground. Let technique be the decoration you add once the ground is solid. Every master who ever lived pointed at this same ground. They pointed at it in Aramaic and Arabic, in Sanskrit and English, in silence and in parable. The finger was always aimed at the same moon. Your state, your inner atmosphere, the quality of your being in this moment, is the cause. Everything else is effect dressed up as cause. Stop decorating, start inhabiting.